Folks, not only are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in search of a new offensive coordinator after the firing of Byron Leftwich, they are also now looking for a new starting quarterback after the recent retirement of Tom Brady. As I've said in previous videos, the only quarterback currently on the Buccaneers roster under contract is Kyle Trask. And while they could certainly give Trask a shot, it also would not surprise really most people if the Buccaneers did look for outside options, be it the trade market, free agency, or even the draft as well. One of the top options that has been on a lot of Bucs fans' minds is current Las Vegas Raiders quarterback Derek Carr, who was benched the final 2 weeks of the regular season in a very weird situation with Josh McDaniels, the head coach of the Raiders, Carr just seemingly stepping away from the team after his benching at the Pro Bowl. He said that he was going to go somewhere else. That has been pretty much guaranteed at this point that Derek Carr is going to be going to another team. As of the recording of this video on February 11th, I believe there are only a few more days for the Las Vegas Raiders to be able to trade Derek Carr before there is a lot of guaranteed money in his contract, which would force the Raiders to release Derek Carr before that guaranteed money kicked in. So, this has raised the question on a lot of Bucs fans' minds is, will the Buccaneers pursue Derek Carr at quarterback? And this is a very loaded situation when you look at it. And the first possibility I want to talk about whenever you ask that question of the Buccaneers pursuing Derek Carr is the trade possibility. Will the Buccaneers trade for Derek Carr? And first things first, whenever you look at Derek Carr as a quarterback, he's pretty darn good, right? He has 217 touchdowns in his career to 99 interceptions, 35,000 passing yards, and only 32 years old whenever the next season is going to begin. So he would be a very good starting quarterback. I would say he would be the best starting quarterback in the NFC South if the Buccaneers were to trade for him. However, the biggest hangup with a trade for Derek Carr at this point is his contract. Right now, as it stands, Derek Carr is scheduled to carry a $34 million cap hit in 2023, a $43 million cap hit in 2024, and a $43 million cap hit in 2025. That's some pretty big numbers. And right now, as it stands, the Buccaneers are $55 million over the cap. They will have to get cap compliant. So, do you trade for a contract of Derek Carr's caliber? Again, $34 million in year one, $43 million in year two, and in year three. It doesn't seem like the Buccaneers can necessarily afford that. Then you also get into the possibilities of, well, you've got to give up draft capital or even possibly players in a package as well to acquire Derek Carr. What would that cost? Derek Carr, again, is a pretty decent, I would even say top half quarterback in this league. It would require a pretty decent amount of compensation to acquire his contract. And right now, as it stands, the Buccaneers might not want to make a trade like that. They have a lot of needs at certain depth position groups: secondary, defensive line, offensive line, wide receiver, running back. There are needs everywhere. Also, starting quarterback is also a need. Do you want to give up assets to acquire a starting quarterback whenever you could use those assets to gain depth at other position groups? That is a pretty legitimate question, and it certainly brings into question a trade for Carr as well. So it doesn't seem like trading for Carr would necessarily be the most sensible move in terms of cap limitations as well as compensation limitations as well. The only scenario that I could see the Buccaneers pursuing Derek Carr is if he is flat out released from the team. That is a legitimate possibility. Why would teams want to trade for Derek Carr and take on a humongous contract whenever they could just wait for the Raiders to be literally forced to release Carr and then just sign him in free agency? And that is an important caveat here. If a player is released from his contract, he doesn't have to wait till the new league year to sign with a new team. He can sign at any time. So, if Derek Carr is released, I would possibly expect the Buccaneers to be interested, but even then, it's going to cost a significant amount of money. Let's say even half of the amount of Derek Carr's current contract. So let's say $21 million per year is what it would cost to get Derek Carr. The Buccaneers still can't necessarily afford a contract like that because they are that deep in the cap hole right now. I'm going to be having a whole separate video talking about the Buccaneers salary cap problems this offseason, by the way. But again, as it stands, the Buccaneers might not be able to afford to pay a quarterback $20+ million a year. So it really is a tricky situation whenever you look at the possibility of the Buccaneers pursuing Derek Carr. Also, you've got to consider, and it really is, painful to say this, if you will, but Derek Carr has already been visiting with the New Orleans Saints. He has a familiarity with them. Dennis Allen was the first head coach that Derek Carr ever had in his time in the NFL. He's now the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, and there is mutual interest there. He's had 2 visits with the Saints already, and he's still under contract with the Raiders. So I imagine if Carr was to be a free agent, you imagine that the Saints would probably be at the top of his list in terms of available options. So I think that any way you slice it, it does seem like a little bit of a difficult situation to imagine, right? The Buccaneers acquiring Derek Carr. It just seems like there's a lot of things going against them right now. It doesn't necessarily seem like the interest is going to be there. The only team that we have necessarily heard, besides maybe the New Orleans Saints being interested, or besides the New Orleans Saints being interested in Derek Carr, is possibly the New York Jets, which they need a quarterback as well. But those have really been the 2 main teams. We haven't heard of many other teams being interested, the Buccaneers included in that list. So unless anything changes, I think that you can chalk this up to, quite simply, the Buccaneers having other needs at other position groups to build up depth, them having significant cap limitations that would prevent any type of trade or even possibly signing as well, and also the just apparent lack of interest and significant interest from Carr and the Saints in each other, and possibly the New York Jets as well. There's a lot of factors that go against this type of move happening right now as of this time, unfortunately. Again, I think Derek Carr would be a great quarterback for the Buccaneers and certainly keep them relevant in playoff conversations and winning the NFC South as well, but it just doesn't seem like that's going to necessarily be in the cards at this moment. There will be some other videos I'll be making covering some other quarterbacks I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could have legitimate interest in, but also you got to remember, first things first, they've also got to get an offensive coordinator in there as well. But what do you guys think? Do you think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will or should pursue Derek Carr at quarterback, be it via trade or free agency? Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I'd love to hear them. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. And I will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.